2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Inside Movies Galore, where we are continuing our holiday season of Christmas-themed films. And we have a film that I think will conjoin very lightly with you guys. So, Forrest, why don't you tell us what this film is all about?
Thank you, Dave. Tonight we're discussing 1992's Batman Returns, directed by Tim Burton, and starring Michael Keaton in the titular role as Batman, Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, and Danny DeVito as the Penguin, and Christopher Walken as Max Shrek,
as new villain Max Shrek.
Yes. And we'll be discussing that. And okay, so the synopsis of the movie: Batman. It's Christmas time. It's Christmas time in Gotham, and Batman has to do battle with Penguin and Catwoman. Penguin is being propped up by businessman Max Shrek as his candidate for mayor, while Shrek's secretary Selena Kyle, after an encounter with Shrek with her boss that goes wrong, she becomes Catwoman.
I'm gonna read the synopsis from the back of the novelization, which I both watched the movie for this episode and read most of this book. So, Batman versus the criminal element. In Gotham City, good and evil never sleep. Today, a new danger is born in the guise of a villainous figure with an umbrella full of savage tricks. He's the Penguin. He's out to dominate the city, and he has a confederate. She's sinuous. She's mysterious. She's got 9 ways of evading death. She's Catwoman. This time, Batman faces the shutdown of his life at high midnight. That's one hell of a synopsis for the book of this, isn't it?
Okay.
It makes it sound a lot more plot-driven than it really is, which is not to say it doesn't have a plot, because it does. It's a little looser, and it doesn't follow a lot of conventional story structure, but it is there.
Mm-hmm. Right. All right, so I guess we'll go around first impressions. So let's see. Go to my right. Dane, is this your first time seeing Batman Returns?
Absolutely not. Now, I do have an interesting history with this film because, when I was growing up, Tim Burton in our house was always kind of like this forbidden fruit, partially, if not almost exclusively, because of this film. Because, keep in mind, so my brother and I, we were little, we were young kids, in the 90s, and this movie had the infamous McDonald's Happy Meal line because, it was a big movie and it was there to sell toys, God damn it, because it was the 90s.
Right.
And
I remember those toys.
Yeah, and I had a lot of them, as did everybody at that time. But
They were little penguins.
Yeah, little
cartridge.
penguins, little everything. Yep. And I mean, that's the thing, to put you in mind with that particular ethos. But the point being that because of this film, I don't think my parents were my parents never liked Tim Burton, any of his films, and they always kind of kept us away from it because it's dark and creepy and perverted and all this shit, it took me years to get into Tim Burton later, kind of particularly despite my parents pretty much. And this film for a long time, I didn't see this all the way through until I was college aged. And it's one of those things that I think, that's a little history of it. But point being, it was always this kind of forbidden fruit, and it was always this really dark, weird thing. Now, to be fair, it is a dark, weird thing. It's very perverse. It's very, it talks about infanticide. It talks about, all kinds of sexual innuendos, all kinds of BDSM themes, all kinds of stuff like that. All in the beautiful glow of Christmas. because what's more Christmassy than infanticide and BDSM? But anyway,
Yeah.
point being that I do really love this film, and I know that some people, this is like their favorite Batman film or one of them. Other people hate this movie, and they could be hardcore Batman fans who are like, that's not Batman, or they could be the concerned parents like my parents, or any number of things. This is a very divisive film, but the people who love it, they really love it, and the people who hate it, they really hate it. But I will say that it's first and foremost a Tim Burton movie, even more than a Batman movie. And I think that's a pretty common consensus. But that being said, as a Tim Burton movie, which the best Tim Burton movies function kind of as a fairy tale, as a fable, and this definitely feels like a Christmas fable, akin to like How the Grinch Stole Christmas, or something along those lines, that has the Batman cast in it. But it also, I think, has a lot of really good, clever social satire, as far as like the kind of culture that would be so wicked as to create someone as disgusting as the Penguin, let alone have him run for public office, let alone use and abuse someone like Selena Kyle to where she lashes back as Catwoman. And
I like how in the book, Max Schreck describes that as, so the Penguin has a few more screws loose than the average politician.
Basically,
Yeah.
Just one fact here. Max Schreck was called Max Schreck because of the actor in Nosferatu.
Exactly, which is a great touch. And to be honest, that's why I emphasize all that, because this film, even more than a superhero film, even more than a Batman film, which it is all those things, it's just an unconventional version of those things. But even more than that, it is a Christmas fable, and it is a social satire, and the main villain of the piece really is Max Schreck, because he's the one who brings these three freakish animal people, the bat, the cat, the penguin, which is what they used in the taglines. He's the one who unites all three of these people, and we'll get into exactly the interesting ways in which he does that, because he has ties to all three of them, and they all speak to their various stations in life. But for my money, I think this is one of my favorite Batman films. I do not think it's necessarily one of the best written in terms of, let's say, a sinister villain plot, or necessarily having to exist in the real world's rules or anything like that. But that's really not the story being told. It really is a fable.
So it's one hell of a first impression.
But it's as a fable, it's a really good one.
Great. Jake, is this your first time seeing Batman Returns?
Definitely not. It's not one that I have seen nearly as often as the first Batman movie. This is one that I have both very clear and very hazy recollections about it. I honestly could swear I had seen much of the animated series first. But there's two problems with that. One, I know I saw it in the theater the summer it opened. And two, it opened 3 months before the animated series started airing. So there's something wrong with my memory there. But what I do remember very, very distinctly is that we went to see this as a family. And I'm the oldest of three.
Oh, dear.
And I was 11 at the time, probably. My youngest brother was probably 6, and I'm pretty sure he was with us. Needless to say, we were not expecting it to be this dark. And I believe that we probably were collecting that Happy Meal line. We probably, I know I was into the toys. I loved the Rocket Penguin toy. That was like my favorite one or whatever.
Mine too.
Of course. And then I don't think I caught most of the sexual innuendos when I saw it, but I saw how dark it was.
Mhm.
I was deeply impressed by how repulsive and disgusting the penguin was. And I half jokingly put up this wonderful image that someone made of the characters as they exist in the animated series, because it is so. My first reaction to this film was pretty strongly negative, but over the years, I've grown to appreciate it on its own merits. It is a somewhat better film than the first Batman. Tim Burton was more assured in doing a bigger budgeted film. He, at this point, had also done Edward Scissorhands, so he had a little bit more filmmaking overall behind him. Overall, it's a more assured film. It does have some script problems, but I don't think they're that particularly bad. Mostly, it's one that has grown on me over the years. And I actually quite enjoyed this viewing, and I'm actually wondering if I might not eventually decide that this is my favorite of the two, but I don't know that I'll go that far. But it's definitely grown on me, and I watched all four of this particular run of Batman to get ready for this. Just the huge drop off between this one and Batman Forever is just not even. They're totally different creatures, even though those two are technically sequels. It's totally different world. And but one thing that I will always say, I know Brandon and I have debated many times, and we talked a little bit in the last discussion about what's the real Joker. But overall, I feel Nicholson definitely had a fully valid riff on the Joker. This is an alternate presentation of the Penguin and Catwoman. It is very much an alternate presentation. They are very, very different. In some key ways, they're similar. Like, Selena Kyle is not crazy. This Selena Kyle is crazy. And I have said that I feel like this version of her ended up getting co-opted into what is now Harley Quinn. Like, the current Harley Quinn is very similar to this Selena Kyle. And
everybody's favorite Catwoman movie.
Yep.
Well, I love Catwoman in this movie. I love Selena. Michelle Pfeiffer gives such a wonderful performance, but it's an alternate version. And the Penguin is usually much more erudite, much more classy, or tries to be. Like in Gotham, he's portrayed as a scrapper who's trying to be a big cheese. But this one, he's just a reject who wants to be loved, but is so bitter that it doesn't take much to take that away from him.
Oh yeah.
And then of course Max Schreck, Christopher Walken. No one can play Christopher Walken better than Christopher Walken.
Well,
and he does it
many
so
have
well.
tried, but there's only one.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things I read about this was that the casting director had to fight Tim Burton to get Walken into the movie. Burton said that man scares me to death.
What did he say?
He said that man scares me to death.
He was, I was afraid of Christopher Walken.
Yeah.
Well,
I just thought that was hilarious. What scares Tim Burton? Christopher Walken. Yeah. So good times.
Yep. Brandon, is this your first time seeing Batman Returns?
Oh no. I cannot remember for the life of me if I saw this in theaters. It was one of those I think I would have, because I was much more into the series at the time, because I really did like the first movie, despite being scared of the last scene. And I remember, and I watched another individual's review of this prior to this, and one of the things that he had talked about jogged my memory in a couple of things, like Yes, all the toys that were coming out, because this is definitely a kids movie.
Yeah.
Just cutting to some of the scenes where like the penguin bites the guy's nose as it's gushing out blood. For kids.
Yeah.
and,
You know,
and by the way, buy this toy, and then made this toy image where it just shows like the image of the guy's like nose being ripped
Yeah.
off. But you know,
I'll teach her my French flipper trick.
I
I am determined to not have this devolve into penguin quotes, which it easily could do, because
Good.
boy, are they good.
Yeah.
I did not like this iteration of the Penguin at first. I was not into the comics super big, though I had been into the 66 series, which, oddly enough, I was able to give Jack Nicholson's Joker a pass from that, because I kind of felt like it was still a safe riff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this really goes into why I had such a hard time with the Joker in The Dark Knight at first, because the level of departure, in my opinion, from those characters is not all that different. There's a similarity there, but good God, it's just kind of a jarring difference from what I'm used to. And I still have conflicted feelings about this, but I do like this film. I'll talk more on the rest later, but just first impressions.
Right. Dustin, is this your first time seeing Batman Returns?
Oh, hoo, 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 hoo.
Say that as a no.
So, it's time for my long story,
Go for it.
which won't actually be particularly long. So I used to get dropped off at one of my mom's friends' houses to be babysat when I was 2, 3, maybe 4. 4 sounds about right, actually, or possibly 5. I don't know, just on the cusp of when this movie hit VHS. And we would rent the VHS tape for this, and I would basically just watch it on a loop many days a week. I loved this movie when I was little, especially the Penguin. Like, every people were like disgusted by the Penguin, but I wanted to be the Penguin. Like, I loved umbrellas, and it was a whole thing. So yeah, I have a history of this movie. I had a good amount of the toys, and as dark as it was, a lot of that was kind of lost on me. Like, I didn't realize it was dark until many years later, and I was like rewatching it, and it was like, wow, this is there's some nasty stuff in this. So I was sort of the target demographic, and I wasn't like freaked out by this movie like it sounds like other people were. So
I was more told to stay away from it rather than having the chance to be exposed to it, such that I really could be freaked out in the intended way.
Well, my parents were kind of neglectful. Like, so if there was something I liked, they would just let me have it because they didn't care. Like, they let me rent. I liked the box for Alien, so they let me rent it when I was 3.
There you go.
And I got to watch it by myself too.
Nice.
Okay.
All right, Dave, is this your first time seeing Batman Returns?
No, this is probably my second to third time watching the film. I also grew up with parents that didn't want me, well, specifically mom. She was very against me seeing the movie, and yet she didn't have a problem with me having the toys from McDonald's. So it was like she was being a hypocrite. But I also am conflicted about whether I entirely like this film entirely, because of the fact that I did not entirely grow up reading the comics of Batman. So when he ended up having guns later on in the feature films after this, it kind of deterred me from those films. But that being as said, I also grew up with the 1960s Batman series, as well as being having a love for the Batman film, even though the Catwoman was a different actress than it was in the TV show in that film. Selena Kyle, to me, Michelle Pfeiffer. I remember a lot of this sexual innuendos in the commercials, but I don't know. I thought that Halle Berry actually, I thought that she was a better Catwoman than
Real Catwoman.
than Michelle Pfeiffer was.
Start fighting, everyone.
Well, let's save that until we get to
I
her.
thought that she was a better Catwoman, but because she was in the X-Men series, I don't think she could have ever been part of the Batman series.
And because her film flopped hard.
Well, I'll throw Dave a small bone, not a full size bone, but a small bone, in the sense that I
Throw
think
some catnip.
yeah, catnip, which is that I think Halle Berry was trying in Catwoman, and I think had she gotten a better script, that she might have been able to do something with it. Would it have been all that great? I don't know, but she might have been able to do something with it. But I do think she was at least trying, and she did look damn good in her suit. Which,
hell yeah!
Now, funny that you bring up Catwoman, because my own, as you can see my avatar there, my little boy Ash, he sees Catwoman, this particular version of Catwoman, as something of a role model for him, as you might imagine. And I'm someone that I really think that Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, as far as the live action Catwomen that we've had thus far, not counting like the animated ones, because if you did that, then Adriana Barbeau has to be number one. But
to me, Julie Newmar was the Catwoman.
She's way up there. I rank her a lot higher. I'll give you this. I would actually put Halle Berry above Anne Hathaway.
I've never seen that movie.
Which one?
The Catwoman movie.
Oh, the one with
I
Halle
haven't
Berry?
either.
I've been told to avoid it, and so thusly I have.
We gotta watch it for this, because honestly, I love that movie because
So do I.
It's like the Showgirls of superhero movies. It's so campy. It's fucking great.
Well, I'm sure it's not. Could it really be that bad? Good lord!
It's funny bad. I think it's too entertaining to be like, it's there's nothing good in it or whatever. I think it's entertaining as hell because it's so campy, and so like, again, it's like Showgirls, But anyway,
digressions aside.
Yeah, with Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman, I think she, and like I think what Jake said, that both she and Penguin, they are alternates, but their characterizations fit the themes of this movie, which is about, corporate greed that infects various aspects of life, all the way from like people within his own Max Schreck, even within his own socioeconomic class, like Bruce Wayne, down to his secretary, down to the less fortunate, like the Penguin, down to even Christmas itself, because again, Christmas is such a commercialized thing, and this is set at Christmas time.
I guess the other thing is that I wasn't entirely sold on Danny DeVito as Penguin because of the fact that his fatness, you could see, was not real.
Yeah,
whereas Burgess Meredith, who played the Penguin in the 1960s Batman, his fatness was real, and
he wasn't even all that fat.
He actually when he talked, it was more or less like, and I'm sorry, when I don't know, that to me was the Penguin. So,
I love what he did with the Penguin, and he still ranks really highly as far as live action Penguins go. He looked great. He acted great. He's just awesome. Now with Danny DeVito, like I think what he did there, I mean, it was totally a reinvention of the character, and it's very Burton-esque. You know, it's the freak, it's the weirdo, it's the person with the deformed hands, much like a certain other handsy Burton protagonist that came 2 years before. You know, he lives alone. He's you know, he's got the misshapen body, much like Quasimodo. You know, he's wants to be accepted but can't be, and the question is always here how much of his desire to be accepted is genuine and how much of it is an act, because there's definitely a point that you can see, especially in the beginning. There's a point where you can see him like he genuinely wants to find his mom and dad. He wants to be loved and accepted. There is a point where you can see the switches are flipping in his head to where maybe even just as a backup or just out of morbid curiosity, where he starts writing the lists of the firstborn of Gotham. You can like, it's more of a gradual shift towards this is this thing that I would like to do if I had the means to do it, and or if I had nothing left to lose. And you can see him planning that, and then of course in that third act when his real plan you know, comes about, then it's like, holy shit, that's what this has been building up to. But you see the true darkness that's at his heart, despite the fact that he is an outcast, and you could have a lot more sympathy for him. He exists in an interesting dimension where there are a lot of outcasts out there that you could definitely feel sympathy for, but it's the degree to which their otherwise repulsive behavior outweighs their sympathy. Like I was showing,
you can tell right away that he's, you know, his backstory is really tragic, but you can tell right away when you meet him that this is somebody that you should probably avoid.
Yeah,
exactly.
That I liked the fact that they showed his backstory and how his story became kind of a little baby Moses kind of story.
Yeah.
Which and I really love the.
What was that, Jake?
Well, I was just going to say we that's kind of the first scene, so we should probably go ahead and let Forrest give his first impression.
I was trying to say,
we didn't do Forrest. I thought we started with Forrest.
No, I know I'm hosting, so I'm going.
Oh well, goddamn.
Go for
it.
No,
anyway, so this is definitely not hard. This is far from my first time watching it. I saw this was actually for me. This is the first Batman movie I ever saw in theaters. I was 4 years old at the time, so it was I was a little freaked. Yeah, I was a bit freaked out, traumatized at first. But I remember like renting the hell out of it as a kid, and then because of the Christmas setting, it eventually became a movie that I had to watch I still watch every Christmas. It's probably one of my top 5 Christmas movies of all time. As far as ranking as among Batman movies, it's probably right. I would probably put it. Maybe among it's definitely in the upper echelon of Batman movies. I would actually put it above Dark Knight Rises.
Without a doubt. Not that that was hard to do.
Actually, I would say no. I would even go as far as to say, like, to this very day, when I read the comic books, like when I'm reading the comics, I imagine Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill as Batman and Joker. When it comes to Penguin and Catwoman, I'm imagining Danny DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer saying those characters' dialogue. And I had bedding. Like, I actually had a Batman Returns blanket that lasted me all the way through college. I have the action figures. Actually, they made a Robin. Kenner made a Robin action figure for Batman Returns because initially Robin was supposed to be in the movie before they wrote him out.
Marlon Wayans.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah,
fun fact about that: Marlon Wayans actually still sees some money. Well, he actually still sees some money from this movie, despite not being in it. Yep.
But yeah, they had Kenner made a Robin action figure that even though the character eventually got written out, but they still put out the toy anyway. And I got that toy for Christmas 1 year, along with the Batcave playset. I also have a few of the video games. They're also actually all in my Nintendo. Actually, I have the video games on Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. Batman Returns has just been a big part of my life since it came, pretty much since it came out, and I actually started collecting comic books just weeks after that movie. No, not even weeks. No, actually, I think just shortly before the movie came out. That was when I got the first my first comic book, which was which I mentioned on the previous show, on the pre-show, with Batman. And Michelle Pfeiffer, favorite. I'm going to disagree with Dave entirely. Favorite Catwoman. I don't think any other actress who's played Catwoman has come close to Michelle Pfeiffer to date.
I would agree if you're talking about live action, because animation is kind of a whole other thing. But
the animated series was much more closer to the comics. But Michelle Pfeiffer to me is still a definitive Catwoman in any media. Is still a definitive Catwoman in any medium outside of the comic books.
I guess in my defense, I would agree with that too. I would have to say that I have not seen this film, nor probably did I have the nostalgia to see the film.
Yeah,
as much as maybe some of y'all it would have had. So I think as far as Catwoman, she has to kind of grow on me first.
Yeah.
Like I didn't pick. Like I didn't. And I should mention, I did not pick up on. I didn't pick up on the innuendos until I was older. But yeah, Catwoman, like right away, like even at 4 years old, Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah, that's away.
Let's just say that Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman turns the boys into men.
Yes,
I will have to say I did like the scene. I did like the scene where she was with Penguin, and she was like, I maybe I should bathe myself here.
Yeah.
I feel dirty. I need a bath.
And then she started licking her hand. So
yeah, that was my lord.
And I will have to admit, I didn't say before, but between this and the animated series, Catwoman probably was my favorite, or more or less tied with Joker as my favorite character from DC for many years. They've dropped below Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn, but this movie is influential in that ranking.
Yeah, well, as far as like for the live action Catwoman, I think that Michelle Pfeiffer was by far the sexiest, and
definitely,
without comparison. But that's partially because of the there's a lot of themes of repression in this film, and with
BDSM.
Well, BDSM, but for her specifically. But like one thing you'll notice with her is that once she turns, obviously, not only does she become more liberated in various ways, but also
the way she dresses and stuff like that changes up.
But also what's really interesting is, so she sews her own costume, and it has that very BDSM / Frankenstein's monster look to it. And what's great about it is that if you notice, subtly, as her sanity continues to slip, the sewing starts to come undone, and her costume obviously gets more and more fucked up over the course of the movie. But you'll notice just in subtle ways there are parts of her clothing that are coming apart because her psyche is coming apart, and it's very subtle, but it's in there. And there are a lot of good touches like that in this film that a lot of people don't necessarily pick up on.
Right.
Yeah, there was a moment where you could actually appreciate some of her curves when she was cat burglaring there for a moment before she talked to them security guards.
All right.
I don't know whether to open fire or fall in love. There are definitely some corny lines in this movie.
There are.
Which
There are some
again,
good ones and some corny ones.
That's the thing that I was saying before, with like, you kind of have to put this movie into the realm of fable, because if you try to hold it up in any way as like the real world or whatever, it's going to fail. And it's even more of a fable than the last one was, which that one was more of clearly a 1930s pastiche. But this very clearly
fantasy.
This is very clearly dark fantasy / dark Christmas movie.
Right. Okay, so let's get into the plot. So
We start with the literal birth of the penguin.
Yes.
Yeah.
And his parents are just horrified by what his parents, played by Pee Wee Herman himself, Paul Rubens, and
Yep.
Diane Salinger. They're horrified at the sight of their newborn son, and they keep him boxed in a box.
Mm-hmm.
And after he kills the family cat, they decide to throw him in the throw him away in a river.
They dump him in Gotham River.
Yep, and he winds
the sewer.
Yes, in the sewers, and he winds up. His carriage winds up at the penguin exhibit at the Gotham Zoo.
Mm-hmm.
Flash forward 33 years. It's Christmas in Gotham. The businessman Max Schreck, played by Christopher Walken, is trying to get the mayor to approve of his new power plant.
Mm-hmm.
But so far the mayor isn't going to budge on it.
The mayor isn't falling for it because it becomes revealed that it's a scam that he's running on the city, like trying to keep some power from it. And the mayor is kind of on. The mayor isn't exactly onto him, but the mayor is like, well, there's a scene with Bruce later on where Bruce kind of lays it out. It's like, so we both know that the city has a power surplus. So what's your angle? You know?
Mm-hmm.
The idea is that he would suck the power out of the outlying sources and use it, try to basically stealing the power and trying to sell it back to people, which admittedly one of the complaints about this
the idea that he has, they expand on this in the novelization. The idea is that it'll supply 3 power to his businesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, the one of the complaints that people have about, well, this film in particular, but the others in the Burton Schumacher era of Batman, is the idea that the villain's master plans are either not cohesive or they're just kind of tangential or they're thought up on the spot or whatever. That is essentially the main plot. It is like the central villain's plot is that. It is a little buried, though, because, again, the central conflict isn't really that. It's the societal conflicts. That's really what it's that's really the main focus of it, because everything else emanates therefrom. But it is important to note that is what's really going on, because really Max Schreck is the big bad guy that ties the other freaks together.
Right.
Right.
And speaking of, when you flash forward, you start hearing the reports of the Penguin Man that's been sighted here and there around
in the sewer.
Mm-hmm.
In the you see Alfred picking up the paper, and I can't remember exactly what he said to Bruce about it, but
I remember he told the paper boy that it was a diversion to read such rubbish.
Yes.
What's weird about this one is that
most of the time it's a waste of time.
Yep.
Alfred almost seems annoyed with Bruce at times.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fishy Swass is supposed to be served cold.
Well, and then Bruce wallops him with, who let Vicky Vale into the Batcave, which I was like, yes, that was great. He didn't let him forget it.
Call him out for it. Yep.
And
right.
Later on, and when they're talking about the party, I love the interactions. It's kind of a little bit more of an interaction here than the other one. Just something like just assuming he's not going to attend, so he rips it in half, and then he just changes his mind. Like, wait, is Selena Kyle going to be there?
He throws the invitation in the air.
Right. Obviously, what's it?
Go ahead.
I was going to say, obviously, before that, you do get your introduction to Selena Kyle, and you get to see her, first of all, as the downtrodden secretary.
Timid.
What's that?
She's timid.
Timid, downtrodden, she tries to speak up and give her idea, and Shrek just cuts her off and mocks her for interrupting them, basically, and she just can't follow through, and go home. She's got her cat, and all this kind of, you hear her all the
early apartment.
Yeah.
I love the neon though.
Yeah, right.
And if you notice, you've got that steel beam, going through the apartment,
Hmm.
like that's how claustrophobic claustrophobic and impressive that place is.
Right.
Oh
Like
yeah.
early on, Penguin's goons
Mhm.
attack a tree lighting ceremony that's
Right.
going on outside Shrek's store.
And they
in
do this as a diversion so the penguin can kidnap Max Shrek.
Yes.
Mhm.
And during this melee, Selena is captured by one of Penguin's is held
She's grabbed by one of the clowns.
by one of the clowns as basically a human shield against Batman.
Mhm.
But Batman takes him down, and she steals his taser.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which becomes important later. Which
Yeah.
good example
Chekhov's
of
gun.
planning and payoff there.
This
Yeah,
one was
Chekhov's
this one
gun.
had
Yeah, and she meets Batman, of course, in this scene
Mhm.
too.
Yeah.
And
And
we
this
get
Bat-
kind of
later on in Shrek's meeting where he asked if they've met before.
Mhm.
I mean, this Batman has almost a slight bit more comical bent to him, like how he saves her. He ends up like, you missed, and then pulls it out and knocks
Yeah.
him.
Knocks him out. Yep.
Or some of the later things in there, how he's killing people. It's almost comical where he's killing some of the.
He just arbitrarily offs Penguin's goons in this goons. Like sets one on fire, then straps a bomb to another one, throws him down an open manhole.
Yeah, one of the goons always looks like John Wayne Gacy just a little bit. So
I'm sure that was probably intentional.
Well, of course, one of them's Vincent Chiavelli, who's a long-term friend of Danny DeVito, and it was kind of fun seeing him in that.
Well, they were both on Taxi together, and
And One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Yep, with Jack Nicholson.
Well, and that's right, tying it all back. But Vincent Chiavelli, he's a really accomplished kind of bit player and character actor, and tragically, he's no longer with us. But man, was he was so great. He had one of those faces that you never forgot it as soon as you saw it. And now, if I recall, isn't he one of the few of the Red Triangle gang, the Red Triangle Circus gang? Isn't he one of the few that lives?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, that's what I thought. He was the organ grinder.
Right.
Yeah, actually, I would say a good chunk of Penguin's goons live, except for the fire breather who gets set on fire by the Batmobile.
Yeah.
The tattooed strong man. Yeah, and the fat clown who gets shot by the Penguin.
Yeah. Did anybody else find it kind of odd that the Penguins gang are clowns?
And not the Joker. They were the Joker's goons.
Instead of being Joker goons, you know what I mean?
That's crossed my mind before.
They set it up with the fact that he was a circus freak. Under normal circumstances, if this were not their own unique version of the Penguin, then yes, I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah.
But they do set it up in the film.
I know it's set up. It just still feels kind of strange to me.
It is a bit jarring when you're talking about traditional Batman. But one thing I will say, not just clowns, but you also have like these, other kinds of freaks. Like you have the guys dressed up as devils. You have like the skeleton guys on the motorcycle.
The skeleton bikers.
Yeah, which when in that whole
you're talking about a biker that kind of looks like a prelude to Jigsaw's little bicycle dude.
Well,
they honestly do.
What I was going to say that's kind of similar is like, so this was 92, 93 was The Nightmare Before Christmas, and it's like, well, can't you just take scenes from this movie? It's like you can totally plop songs in there, and it's like, oh, it kind of fits, So like, the opening attack, you could do like "Kidnap the Sandy Claus." I
was just thinking like with the one with the opening attack, almost they could be doing "This Is Christmas." That would be kind of
Christmas, or I thought of "Kidnap the Sandy Claus" because that's what they were doing to Max Shrek there.
Good times.
Anyway.
Bikers there, they kind of looked like.
What Max was Gotham's own Santa Claus, so
yeah, exactly.
Somewhat self-professed.
Right.
On the side note, I gotta say, Christopher Walken in this movie was just
He's at his walkenest.
yeah.
Well, and don't forget his son that's trying to be exactly like him.
Chip Shrek, played by Andrew Beniarski, who went on to play Zangief in Leatherface.
And he does do a good impression of Christopher Walken.
He
I
does.
don't know. I thought he was not that memorable overall.
Well, he's not that memorable of the character, but acting-wise, he actually looks like he could have theoretically been related to him. So despite it being kind of a nothing role, he definitely does something with it. But our dear Max Shrek, who is walking at his walkenest, and God bless him for it.
Well, and his look isn't that far from the Hessian in 1999's Sleepy Hollow.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very...
his look is not that far from our dear Jack Skellington either, in terms of his suit.
I was thinking that his
pinstripe.
I was thinking that his pinstripe suit wasn't that far from Beetlejuice.
A little bit. But so you do have the great interaction. I guess get back to the plot. We've got the follow up to seeing Catwoman's apartment as she goes back to the office. I loved how she had called herself from the office, and when she was going over her messages, and she rushed back there to get the important stuff for the Bruce Wayne meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's when she discovers the truth about the power plant.
Right.
And Max decides to throw knock her out of a window to keep her quiet.
Right.
She knock her out of a window, not just out of any window, but like a window from Lord knows how many. God, maybe several stories up. Leaves her for dead.
Mm-hmm.
And she's revived by a litter of alley cats.
Mm-hmm.
Which now a lot of people that hate this movie, they complain about that because they're like, "What are they? Are they super cats? Are they this and that? They don't explain it." And again, it's like this is clearly in that kind of fable frame of mind, so you have to think of it that way. But in that
crazy cat lady is saved by her love for felines.
You kind of have to think out of the box, ladies and gentlemen, and use your brains.
I should add here, one of my more vivid memories of this movie is one time I watched it with my dad, and after Catwoman is revived and goes back to her apartment and has her freak out and makes the Catwoman costume, and when we get the reveal of her in the Catwoman costume, my dad actually said out loud, "This is a stupid movie."
I'll throw as far as on the disturbing.
That was a magical moment for me.
On the disturbing-o-meter, I think the whole scene where she wrecks her apartment is very not so much disturbing, but it's very sad. But the part that always kind of, I don't know if it disturbed me, but it sort of bummed me out was when she puts her stuffed animals down the
animals. That freaked me out when I was little.
I briefly
had a lot of stuffed animals growing up, and I was like, "Don't do that."
So this time around, I obviously never would have made this connection before, but this time around, I was feeling like there was a little bit of a flashback to Meet the Feebles in that scene.
Right. Okay, so now she's going.
She had a lot of great lines in this movie, but she did not say, "Eat lead, you man-stealing son."
Anyway, so she's after she's been left for dead and had a meltdown. She's become Catwoman. To the next day, the mayor is addressing the ambush from the night before. When an acrobatic clown comes out from behind and snatches the mayor's baby and makes off with it to the nearest open manhole. And that's when which is where the penguin.
It's shortly before that Max Shrek has a political speech, and that's when Penguin kidnaps him and basically tells him, "Okay, I want to get into the limelight."
Yeah, so they had
blackmailed him.
They have the plan.
Penguin blackmails Shrek into helping him come into the light, so to speak.
Mhm.
I have to say, I like the part where the part where he has the whole Christmas stocking full of Max's dirty little secret, ranging from toxic waste to thermos of toxic waste to shredded documents revealing that he owns half the fire traps in Gotham City, to a dismembered hand belonging to a former business partner.
Hi, Max, remember me? I'm Fred's
hand.
See, it's so quotable. Like, we just can't stop ourselves.
Yeah, that's how good these ones were.
Well, and not to mention, like, his whole thing, I'm ready, Max. I've been down here too long. It's time for me to ascend, to reemerge.
I think that's one of the Penguin's most genuine, like, character moments, too.
Oh,
I
yeah.
come from, and he points up, like you.
Yeah.
And he's not
putting on an act.
not putting on an act, yeah. He's
Well, with one
sincere.
of the original
Find my mom and dad.
Brandon, you're saying something?
with one of the original concepts being that that was left out, that he and Max were supposed to be brothers.
Right.
That would have added
drafts.
that really would have added to me an extra amount of depth,
Mhm.
and in
That's
a
it.
way, I think it would have added a little bit more stability to the Penguin's story.
Yeah, actually, I know at one point Max was supposed to be Harvey Dent,
Right.
and what happened at the end? What happened in the final act was supposed to be a setup for Two-Face.
Right.
Yeah, but Arnold Schwarzenegger is already in Batman and Robin, so we can't have another twins moment.
Yeah.
Arnold.
Based on the film that is here, we do have the idea of the wealthy and privileged of Gotham, which Bruce Wayne is, which Max Schreck is, and which Oswald Cobblepot could have been, should have been, but was not because he was cast away. And so you do get that idea of, some of that social hierarchy that gets upended, and so he wants to return to his former status, but he, in his attempts to get reintegrated into society, it's done through subterfuge, obviously, faking the kidnapping of the mayor's baby, returning him, and then using him as a patsy to run for mayor, and then obviously, as like a sham candidate in a recall election.
Right.
Which that whole plot of the Penguin running for mayor and everything, which you would totally never see that in a superhero movie today. But it was actually lifted from an episode of the
He's not our business Penguin.
The funny thing you say that, though, but I've always thought that was a really good narrative for the Penguin.
Well, I
And
didn't know that one. I'm just saying you would never see it today. As far as
you might.
it's not
You see now,
enough,
What's that, Brandon?
now the original Penguin character, the one from the comics, a run for mayor is not all that out there for him.
Right.
But the Penguin would have been. He wouldn't have been the manipulated party. He would have been entirely in control of it.
Now, in Gotham,
it's
in
many
Gotham.
versions of the Penguin, like the one in Gotham. Penguin has been what, as they call in The Simpsons, a legitimate businessman, quote unquote.
Yes. I do. I also like how. in Gotham, the Penguin's parents. Actually, Pee-wee is apparently the father of the Penguin.
Reprising the role.
Generations.
Yeah.
Very
And
different versions.
that was a big thing for Gotham. I remember a lot of buzz about him returning, and that was the right move.
Which, you know what happened was Pee-wee realized that the Penguin was his son, and he looked at the audience and he said, "This is crack."
Anyway, where are we in the plot now?
All right, so I think we got to the point where we've already gotten to the point where Max
lays out his plan to the Penguin.
to make him mayor.
And that has kind of one of my favorite lines in it. Elections happen in November. Is this not late December? He's like very confused, trying to figure out what's going on. He's like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yep. And so just in order to get to drum up support, he sends Penguin sends his goons to wreak havoc around in the streets of Gotham. Which Batman, and Batman it's up to Batman to stop them. And while this is going on, Catwoman breaks and enters into Shrek's department store, and sets off an explosion.
One of her pure Harley Quinn moments.
Yeah,
she's just blowing stuff up for the fun of it, just to needle Shrek.
Right.
You gotta love how.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. You were talking.
And prior to this explosion, Batman and Penguin meet each other face to face for the first time.
Right.
Where Batman pretty much knows what Penguin's what he's up to. He pretty much already knows that he feels that Penguin already knew who his parents were, and that he has some more ulterior motive to getting to entering the Hall of Records. But now
despite him in an earlier scene, you can see that he has genuine sympathy for him because he's like his parents.
Yeah,
he does, but then he reads about the disappearing children, and he believes that this was
turns him real quick, as you would expect. And of course, they have that amazing exchange. You're not the mayor. Things change. What do you want? The direct approach. I admire that man with a mask. You don't really win, do you? Things change. I love it.
It is so hard to just not quote the entire movie.
I know. Well, but that's that's pretty critical.
I think it's right at that moment, isn't it? That Catwoman comes.
That's what I was gonna say. It's great. She somersaults out there.
Yeah.
And then just meow, and then boom.
You get that brief moment.
His helicopter umbrella while Batman pursues her to a nearby rooftop. And they get into.
I wanted that helicopter umbrella so badly when I was little.
He had some great toys too. Yeah.
Yes.
But I did love that part where when Selena comes flipping out there, there's that brief moment where Batman and Penguin kind of look at each other, and it's like,
they're like, "What the fuck?"
So anyway, Batman pursues Catwoman to a nearby rooftop, and where they fight each other, which ultimately results in Batman knocking her off into a dump truck of kitty litter. And so after this encounter, Catwoman comes to Penguin, and they team up to frame Batman.
Quick thing. In the novel, there's a lot of dialogue between Batman and Catwoman in this first encounter.
Oh, really?
And you do have the really famous scene, the really famous shot and really famous scene where like she's crouched over top of him, and she's got that
later.
No, that was this part, because they planted this quote that they had to call back later, where she's like.
That's later.
What's that?
With the mistletoe.
Oh, that was later.
Yeah, after the Ice Prince.
Wasn't that when they killed off like the model or whoever?
Yeah, the Ice Princess.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was at the masquerade ball where they come up, where the guys the reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So never mind. We'll save that then.
But speaking of which, Penguin challenges the mayor to relight the Christmas tree in Gotham Plaza. And while this is going on, he plots to kidnap the Ice Princess, a beauty queen model who lights the tree, and frames Batman. Frames Batman for it. Like during Batman's previous encounter with the Red Triangle Gang, his goons obtained one of his batarangs.
They somehow acquired the blueprints to the Batmobile, which I love this movie, but I will concede for all the haters.
Yes. That is a pretty big lapse in logic. They just have like a big pin up of it.
Actually, in one of the I've read one of the earlier drafts of this, one of the earlier drafts of Batman Returns, and it mentions that the Red Triangle Gang had been taking photographs of the Batmobile in action, and were able to get blueprints from that.
Wasn't that supposed to be in the novel?
So they sort
Dustin,
of
was that in there?
Surprisingly, it was not how they managed.
Oh.
How they managed to get those blueprints was not.
Oh, I
At
thought
least
it
in my
was.
recollection. I didn't read. I read about 80% of the novel. Like I skipped
Oh.
around a little bit today. But that's kind of one of my unanswered questions.
Yeah, which I
Little
mean,
bit
I love this movie, and I fully acknowledge that it should be viewed through the lens of a fable, and thus, fairy tale logic and that kind of stuff. But I will say, that being said, even that, I was like, I cannot defend that. I don't know how in the hell that makes any sense, even if we're using fairy tale logic there.
So
But
you gotta
that,
love that payoff
Yeah.
later on with the clown car thing he's in.
oh, I know.
That would be
That's a great scene, but like that whole exchange there that takes place after the Penguin has basically groped a girl. Let me just get it on there, So he does that, and then with the just the pussy I've been looking for, with our dear Michelle Pfeiffer stretched out on the bed in such a way that that alone would turn the boys into men real quick. But that whole scene there is just rife with all kinds of sexual innuendo and stuff, and that's where they decide to team up to destroy Batman by turning him into what he hates the most, namely us. And except that one could argue he's kind of already there because they're all freakish animal people.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So anyway, Penguin kidnaps the Ice Princess and leaves her somewhere where Batman can find her. So Batman goes, Batman frees her, but then gets into another tiff with another fight with Catwoman, who makes off with the Ice Princess and leaves her on a ledge. And Penguin ends up killing her by forming her with bats, making it look like in order to frame Batman. She goes falling off into the box that lights the tree, and the crowd gets swarmed by bats. And so after that, Batman is actually the cops shoot at Batman. He falls off the roof and lands on a balcony, where Catwoman.
That's where you have that licking scene, which is mega.
You're catnip to a girl like me, handsome, dazed, and to die for. Mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it. A kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it. You're the second man who killed me this week, but I've got 7 lives left. I like this. I tried to save you. Seems like every woman you try to save ends up dead or deeply resentful. Maybe you should retire.
Yeah, I love that she licks him and that he licks his lips. He's like, "Oh yeah, I like that."
Catwoman and Batman. That is like the romance of that series, and it's a good one. It's a lot of fun.
It's done very palpably, and you buy that they would like each other as Catwoman and as Bruce and Selina. You buy that they would like each other.
Actually, though, it's funny that you only see Bruce's interest in her when she starts acting like she's a bit crazy. Even when you see the other, it's just like, ooh, crazy. I'm attracted to that.
You have a dark side, don't you? No darker than yours, Bruce. And then, of course, she has one of her best lines when they have that fireside chat. When it was like, you'd think of me as, John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy.
Norman Bates, Ted Bundy.
Norman Bates, Ted Bundy type, and you might not let me kiss you. Sickos don't scare me. At least they're committed. But Which again,
Well,
that
does
really
happen to
that
those.
sums up their respective feelings in life because
Right.
that Bruce Wayne is definitely more in line with a Norman Bates, Ted Bundy type. He just happens to be, using his freakishness for relative good.
And overall, I personally think the relationship between the two of them is a lot stronger than Bruce and Vicky Vale in the previous movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because
It
like
looks much better.
Bruce says, eventually he's like, Selena, we're the same, split right down the center.
Hmm.
All right, so Batman makes the getaway from Catwoman, and makes his way back to the Batmobile, which has been sabotaged by the Red Triangle gang.
Mhm.
And so the Penguin can take control of it remotely.
With his little video game car kitty.
His carnival, yeah. So he takes the Batmobile for a spin around Gotham, knocking cars over and trying to run over little old ladies. Before Batman eventually takes control back of finds the device that the Penguin's using to control it, and then manages to split the Batmobile off into a Bat missile.
Mm-hmm.
Making his way back to the Batcave, and come to the next day, Christmas. It's Christmas Eve. Penguin's is having a rally at the plaza when Batman hacks the speakers.
Yeah.
He hacks the microphone system and plays the Penguin's comments that he'd recorded in the Batmobile to the crowd, to the masses who are none too. Now the Penguin's exposed. The crowd's none too happy and runs him out of society again.
Well, it
I
has
played this stinking city like a harp from hell.
Oh.
And they turn on him like right away.
It really did. But it has two of my favorite bits in the movie. One is the I call it the Bat record scratch, where he goes.
Yep.
It makes it kind of echo a bit. But then also one of my favorite lines in the whole thing is, "Why does someone always bring lettuce and tomatoes to us?"
Eggs and tomatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is someone always being produce with speech?
Yeah,
Okay,
I love it.
Did anybody else think when they got to this scene that the first thing that would be said, all that would need to be said in the modern day is, fake news?
I was just going to say
Right.
that. You beat me to it.
It would be so nice.
I picked up on a lot of these Trump parallels back, in the last few years.
There are quite a few of them in
I
regard
guess any
to
political parallels, really, if you think about it. People who decide that they like somebody, and I'm not going to try and go one side versus the other. I'm just saying, in the political spectrum, when you really attach to somebody like they did to Penguin, these days, just hearing that would not have been enough to turn the crowd against him.
I know, which that's a different era right there, because
Yeah.
well, it was actually funny you say that because it was actually 1992 election year with the big hot button item in that arena was what all Clinton was up to with his various affairs and stuff, and the fact that he was able to survive all of that and win was considered kind of groundbreaking at the time, because most of the time those kinds of scandals would kill someone's aspirations. And of course, we've kind of the bar for I'm going to jump ship. That bar has been raised significantly, and you're right, that would not be enough in and of itself to end someone's chances.
Well, I'm not even sure when that would be enough, really, but definitely not these days, and even not in that time period. Well, maybe. Well, again, that's 91, so Bush, and this is before the Clinton scandal, which was because 91 was way before the Clinton scandal,
right?
So yeah, I mean,
I
think even the.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say he had a reputation as a bit of a player even before he got into office, but
that's what I meant. He had quite a few scandals with the ladies even before Monica Lewinsky, all the way back to like
Oh,
the
yeah.
good trip. So
But one good point though is that like we live in an age now where people apparently a popular scam is to use collected vocals of people you know and edit them together and to make people think that you're getting like a call from your boss or something like that.
yeah,
And so like in that context, hearing that now, people could easily say, well, that was edited, that was faked. But I
yeah,
think that would be a little bit more, they would probably have more of a tendency back then, would have had more of a tendency to at least doubt, to
Oh,
at
yeah.
least have a, you know what I mean?
Well,
Like, yeah.
nowadays, with audio editing and stuff, you're right. Like, you know, it's a lot harder to verify stuff like that. You know, plus, like, you know, it just coming in all of a sudden when his lips aren't even moving and all that stuff. Like, you know, that would certainly raise some eyebrows these days. And
Yeah.
you know,
Up on the podium, though, they can't really. The people in the crowd can't really see that.
yeah, but it's
And you also have to wonder if they did come with Rotten Tomatoes and eggs and stuff, they probably were not his most devoted followers.
could have
Yeah,
been,
they wanted him dead anyway.
could have been the counter protesters that George Soros paid for. Oh,
Yeah.
Anyway, so
anyway,
Penguin makes his way back to the sewers, where he carries out his ultimate plan, which was to kill Gotham's firstborn sons, and kills one clown who questions his
right.
plan.
It's like killing children. Isn't that a little?
No, it's a lot.
I used to say that to myself an awful lot.
Yeah.
but his whole
Just a
explanation.
little. No, it's a lot.
But his whole explanation of his plan, which we already established the anti-Moses parallels in the beginning, and then we're continuing that theme with the and we will snatch them, drag them into the sewers, and toss them into a deep, dark, watery grave. You know, like that whole thing.
He's like really excited for this plan too.
Yeah.
Well, and his
Like
performance-
creepily excited for it.
his performance there is some of his most intense acting in the thing. You know, and just like the look in his eyes is just so crazed, and it's like, holy crap, you know, that would scare the shit out of me if I saw somebody do that in real life.
See, to me, the take I got on this, and I watched this with my wife so that I could get a good idea as to get somebody else's eyes on it, and she thought so too. Is like, you know, a lot of that whole child plan, to me, that was his plan all along. I mean, the whole idea of I want to find my parents was just a ploy to get in at the records.
Yes.
In order to
Get the names.
get there. That's the thing with the Penguin, and that's the biggest flaw I have in the character writing, is that he plays it being a sympathetic character, but I can never fully feel sympathy for the character because he doesn't come across as 100% genuine.
And he's portrayed disgusting right from the beginning, and any kind of fleeting moments of sympathy that we get are
quickly drowned out.
They're too few, and I do definitely agree with that. And that's, if they wanted the full impact of that character's death to hit the way that I think it intended to hit, then you would have given him more sympathetic qualities, or at least you would have shown his turn in a more clear fashion, because the impression we get is that, which I think he really did want to find his parents and everything. I think that was in there, but he always had that.
He always had this plan. That was kind of touched on in the novel. That reading the novel, you get the idea that he has a rough guess as to who his parents were, but he needs to get into the archives. But his master plan has always been, killing the firstborn kids.
Yeah. Which I mean, and you can see, like, I think honestly, one of the darkest moments in the film is something that's only read about and not even seen, which is what we mentioned before, where they read about the Red Triangle Circus Gang and about the disappearances of children and everything,
Mhm.
which he's already killed children. He's already
It's implied he killed children.
what?
It's implied he killed children. I don't know. I have a kind of a hunch that maybe he took some of those children and indoctrinated them into his gang. That's just one possible.
That's definitely possible.
That's always what I assumed.
Yeah,
I
well,
always,
it
I
could be
always
either
thought,
way.
I always thought he killed him, and he maybe even ate him or something. But like, it's and that would definitely put him in line with like the killer from Fritz Lang's M, if we want to be all German expressions about it.
Yeah.
Because he was a child killer too, who was a social misfit and all that stuff. But had more sympathy than this character does, despite him being so evil.
I wanted to make one point about it because I don't want to come across as necessarily criticizing DeVito's performance for the whole, because I feel like his performance was top notch of what he was given.
Uh-huh.
I feel like the character was written as slightly inconsistent, but I feel like the performance of that was an amazing one, on point. I think Danny DeVito gave his all in that
He really
performance.
did.
Did.
Yeah.
I think it's more that the moment when he turns, it's more so that it's just not as clear as it could have been, because I think you have to kind of frame it up like it was more so that this was brewing in the back of his mind as like the ultimate revenge, but it just took these moments of rejection to really push him over the edge and to have exhausted his alternatives.
I do agree with you, Brandon, on the fact that that I do think that Danny DeVito did give his all into the performance that which he was given on his plate. My biggest problem with this film was when they executed the plan of the toxic water in the end battle-ish. If the water was so toxic, why were the penguins able to swim through it?
Yeah, I was wondering.
And why was Max Shrek able to be like thrown into the water and him not come back with toxic waste shit?
Well, in the book, they describe the lagoon as brownish green and like really disgusting. Max Shrek, when he's in the cage, Max Shrek is thinking to himself that it would probably eat away his pants if he got it on him.
Mhm.
So that's something that's kind of more in the novelization, that the lagoon of sludge is there. It looked pretty clean.
Well, they actually
that's the cleanest looking sewer I've ever seen.
There's a lagoon of in the back, meaning that there are multiple pools.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. They make it clear that particular section of it is okay for swimming because, well, they got the penguins to think about. The penguins got to swim around in relatively clean water, but yeah, there's other parts of the sewer that are uninhabitable, I assume.
Right.
Well,
but I thought that too. I felt like, penguins are not exactly known for being creatures of polluted environments. So
I think maybe they could have cleared that up a little better.
Right.
Yeah. There are definitely a lot of essential plot details / world building aspects that are in there. They're just kind of in the background, and they're not brought to the forefront as much as they probably should be. And I fully get that.
And I want to make one last thing on the whole idea of the penguin that Dane, that you were putting forward. I think he absolutely intended to do this thing with the children all along, that was his goal. It was not an afterthought. I do think that was his goal.
I'm glad I'm not the only one on that.
I do think that with Shrek, he saw a possibility that he might be able to be big man on campus, to be accepted, but also to be accepted on his terms and not just as some freak or whatever, but like he saw that opportunity. And then I think that part at the press conference was when he realized, wait a minute, no, I'm still just a freak show attraction to these people. And he did snap. I think there was a moment where he snapped.
Well, he had
but
nothing.
I think it was not so much he changed his plans as he gave up that shred of hope that he had.
Exactly. Yeah. And I do like that aspect of it quite a bit, that that he doesn't he has it in his mind, but he also, it's a little bit like, you have psychopaths or sociopaths, or you have people that plan heinous crimes, like whatever it is, a mass shooting or whatever, that maybe they had like some stage of it or some inkling of the idea, but then it's like when something particularly bad happens to them that makes them feel like they have no choice, then that's when they execute it, but it's beyond like the planning or the vague notion stages.
Yeah, the Penguin was kind of into being mayor. He was like, you know what? Maybe this is better.
I can really get into this mayor stuff. It's not about power. It's about reaching out to people,
touching people.
Groping. I mean, I think this was the first time I saw this movie that I realized how perverted he actually was.
Yeah. Let's see where he's putting the button on just alone.
Right.
Right there, I'm thinking to myself, ooh, that would be a problem with me too.
He's confident.
That would get you in so much trouble, no matter who you are.
Yeah. We're hurtling to the conclusion here.
Yeah.
So Batman stops the circus train that's abducting children.
Yeah.
Well, we should probably talk about the ball first.
Because the ball is where it all, where they were able to get Selena and Bruce realize who each other are.
And that's a great moment, because she comes back, they see the mistletoe, and she's like, a kiss under the mistletoe, mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it. A kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it. And then they both just kind of look at each other. But it's also really cool. It's really cool that it's a costume ball.
Yeah.
It's really cool that it's a costume ball and they're not in costume.
They go as themselves,
Yeah,
that scene is a little longer in the novel with some more dialogue, where they kind of like examine each other's like wounds from the battles that they've had. Yeah. It's like, there's the burn I gave you. It's like, there's those puncture wounds. You're him, you're her.
Okay, so I'm thinking about the Scar comparing scene in Chasing Amy now.
Oh yeah, we mentioned last episode. We mentioned the Prince music in the first one. This one is almost all except for there's one Susie and the Banshees song, Face to Face, which plays in that scene, and
and Super Freak.
That's right. But it fits the mood perfectly, and it also fits the theme of it, because they are both face to face as their true selves, and yet their true selves are really when they have their masks on. So it's a good irony. Not to mention the fact that when they do the mistletoe thing, it was because Batman initiated it in the costume, and out of costume, Selena Kyle initiates it. So they do the opposite parts. So it's a lot of opposites there, which is really great. And of course, right before the Penguin shows up, we have the great. Well, we already had one instance of Bruce. Shame on you. We had that in the boardroom scene, but then here we have. I think we have a second one, and then we have Yawn.
Yes. And then this one I believe was also a direct nod to some of the old Vincent Price movies, and like wasn't Shrek's costume like taken out of like Mask of the Red Death or one of those movies. Like
I think I saw that to the 1925 Phantom of the Opera in there.
right. And I do want to mention that I was reading a lot of trivia on these, and you mentioned that Susie and the Banshees song.
Yes.
I think I read that Tim Burton specifically wanted them because they said no one could wail like a cat like that vocalist could do.
Susie Sue?
And I'm like, huh?
Like Susie Sue could?
Right. And
Right.
I'm like, well, that's pretty appropriate if they were playing that during the quote unmasking, if you will.
Yeah,
That,
and they
that would be good.
hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so they reveal each other, but before they can resolve this conflict, Penguin ambushes the party, crashes the party,
Mm-hmm.
and tells all the guests that his goons are capturing
Are coming for your kids.
kids.
Mhm.
Yeah. So Batman. Bruce and Selena take off and get suit up.
Mm-hmm.
Off
We
screen.
don't really see where Catwoman goes for a while. Like
Yeah.
Batman goes to stop the train, the circus train that's collecting the kids.
She's following Penguin and Shrek back to the sewer.
Mm-hmm. Well,
okay.
first you have that scene where Penguin says that he came personally
Yeah.
to get Gotham's number one child, which was
Shrek.
Shrek's son. And then Shrek's like, "No, take me." And
Is one rare moment of humanity.
yeah,
Yeah, they expound on that a lot in the
Mhm.
book, like talking about how for the first time in a long time, Shrek was genuinely frightened.
mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah, and
I think my favorite line from that scene in the book too is Shrek's relief at seeing the gun moved away from Chip's face was soon replaced with dismay when it was pointed in his own.
yeah.
I
like the line where it's like, if you have any humanity in your heart or whatever, he's like, I
if you have
don't.
a shred of humanity
Right.
left in you. Well, I don't.
So no.
Well, he's like, I'm the one you want. Ask yourself, isn't it Max Shrek who manipulated and betrayed you? Isn't it Max, not Chip, who you want to see immersed up to his eyeballs in raw sewage?
Yeah,
Okay, you got a point. I'll let the little prince live.
now.
I like his ducky too, because it can do all kinds of things. It can raise up, it can go on the water, it can go on land.
Right.
Oh, I love
Just like
that
the,
thing. I was like, rubber ducky, you're the one.
Yeah,
It's just like Sesame Street.
Penguin arrives in a bizarre car shaped like a rubber duck.
Right.
I even though it's not penguin shaped, I think it's still appropriate because the penguin
Bird motif.
Well, the penguin, it is a bird motif, but because keep in mind that the penguin in the comics loves birds in general, not just penguins.
Right.
But also, it fits the theme that this penguin is essentially a massively overgrown child that has gone past. It's like there's grown, overgrown, rotten, and then there's like rancid, radioactive, which is basically where he's at now. So like all of those symbols of childhood have turned beyond toxic at this point. So his rubber ducky is like this childhood symbol that has just turned
It actually looks kind of menacing.
Exactly. Well, it becomes menacing because of
they do
using it and what it represents.
Go ahead, Brandon.
They do have a rubber ducky in the baby scene at the beginning that you see. That if you look carefully, you see at least one of them sitting there. Yeah. So there you go. It's a callback to childhood.
Yep.
And then you get a callback to that, I think, in Nightmare Before Christmas with that one toy that they come up with.
Yes.
Yeah. Which have you guys ever seen the? So Tim Burton for this film, I don't believe for the first one necessarily, because Peter Gruber and John Peters had much more leeway over that one than they did. Well, they weren't really. I think it was John Peters was like an executive producer on this one, but they had a lot more sway. They had a lot more sway over the previous one, but with this one, like creatively speaking, most of the impetus for the way that the characters look and function and all that, they all came directly from Tim Burton's own drawings, which have that Tim Burton style.
Oh, I can see that.
And if
So
you guys,
you would
if
have
you guys
drawn the
have
duck.
ever, if you guys have ever seen on the special features or whatever, some of his original sketches of these characters, you see his original sketch of the child version of Oswald Cobblepot, and that image was what was given to Danny DeVito to take the role, and that kind of swayed him because it's like this plump little, almost like formless child with like barely any arms or anything. They're like flippers basically, and he's in front of a canopy or whatever. And I think the tagline underneath it said, "My name is Jimmy, but they call me the hideous penguin today." And it was that there was a lot of feeling in that image that you're like, holy shit, this
I
really,
think I've seen that.
it's a
Yeah.
powerful image. I mean, Tim Burton's art is really good. It's very powerful, and it is very evocative of his kind of inner feeling. And so, you take that, and then obviously the other artists, they translate that into 3 dimensions, and you have what shows up on the screen, but it still has that Burton feel. And you see that all over the place in this film, but you see all the feelings that these characters have, and well, that's why you see the penguin looks the way he does, but also like why Catwoman looks the way she does. She has a lot in common with her costume, has a lot in common with like Edward Scissorhands, for example.
Anyway, so where are we at? We're at Batman stops the Penguin scheme to kidnap the children, and then the Penguin's final plan goes into motion, where he has... Now, in the book, this takes a couple of days, so I don't know how this messes with how this deals with the timeline. So I think it's Christmas Eve now.
I think the whole third act of the movie takes place on Christmas Eve, including the ball.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the book says that it took most of the day to outfit the penguins with their weapons. So his plan is Penguin Army. Like, the penguins have bazookas and rockets strapped to their backs, and they're going to basically go into the town square and just fire into every building that they can.
Yeah.
Right.
I will admit that that's an amazing image of the penguins marching with their rockets and everything, but I will admit that
I loved it. I love that so much.
I will admit that the book explaining that chronology does make a little bit more sense, because the way it's edited in the movie, you're led to believe it's like, okay, that didn't work, so here's the backup plan: just destroy everything with the penguin.
Well, and I love how they all went to that cross section, and then Bruce and his butler,
Bruce and Alfred
ended up making the penguins turn around, and then you hear in the background the computer things saying, "I think the penguins are turning around."
Yeah. So first of all, we want to mention a couple of bits here before they put that into effect. You have the great moment where the organ grinder's monkey comes in and gives the penguin a note.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, "Where are all the children?" And he looks at the note. "Dear Penguin, the children regret they are unable to attend. Batman."
Yeah.
Oh, in the book, there's a little more to that. The note also says, "Have a disappointing day."
Okay. And then, of course, with the actual...
The whole note thing, you would totally see that in like a 40s Batman.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought and apparently the monkey was entirely freaked out by the look of the penguin. He was scared to death of him.
Yeah.
But I did like as well the countdown sequence. They had the poodle lady and it was a total nod to James Bond at that moment. It seemed like something right out of a Bond movie, where she's just doing that monotonous counting of the...
Oh, yeah.
It was just so weird and creepy, and it really felt like something right out of Bond.
Oh, definitely. I like the bat boat thing that goes
Bat
to
boat,
the sewers.
Yeah.
The bat ski boat,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
which I think that's what it's actually called in the novel.
That's what it's called in the novel. And I think also the toys too. All referred as the Bat Ski Boat.
Well, the whole showdown between Batman and the Penguin in the actual sewer, the winter section of the sewer, it's a again the movie shot beautifully because it's the Tim Burton crew of Bo Welch set design, Colleen Atwood on the costumes, what's his name, something Zapsky or whatever on the
Steven Zapsky.
yeah, Stephen Zapsky as the DP. It's like that. This is them at like some of their creative best, and they all come together to produce just unforgettable looking images with the way that the zoo looks in particular. Again, very Burton-esque, very kind of 1950s overgrown monsters, but all washed over with snow. It looks beautiful, and then just how much rage the Penguin has as he's like, "You're just jealous because I'm a freak and you have to wear a mask."
I'm a genuine freak, and you have to wear a mask.
Exactly.
Right. The
The final brawl with Batman is pretty brief.
Yeah.
Because the Penguin isn't really the Penguin relies on his gadgets. He's not much of a physical threat.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind that in the certainly in the first two of the Burton Schumacher films, that Batman's ability to physically do combat is nowhere near what it would become even in like the Schumacher ones, and then of course later on when they had more
Nolan ones.
mobility.
Yeah, Batman's fighting isn't as impressive. Batman's fighting is more like quick hits.
Yeah, it's pretty stiff because again they what became known as the bat turn, like where he turns his whole body, that was more of a necessity because he couldn't turn his head.
Yeah.
So he had to turn his whole body. Like, yeah, his physical fighting prowess is nowhere near what it would become in like a good example of how that was done well was actually in Batman Forever. Like they had some pretty good mobility for Batman despite him not being able to turn his head as much. But that plus the fact that the Penguin's not really much of a physical fighter.
So anyway,
crashes the skyline.
Batman trips Batman's signal override has the Penguins blow up the zoo.
Yeah.
And the Penguin falls through the skylight. And meanwhile, while all this is happening, Shrek has managed to get the keys from the monkey and escape his cage, only to be stopped by Catwoman. So Batman walks in on Catwoman and Shrek. Well, they have kind of a fun amount of banter. But anyway, Catwoman is trying to kill Shrek, and Batman, well, let her.
You're not just saving a life. You're saving a. Shut up! You're going to jail.
Anyway, so he tries to talk her out of it. Even unmasks himself in front of her, and Shrek.
Right.
But
and I love his response. Bruce Wayne, Bruce, why are you dressed like Batman?
Because he is Batman, moron.
Yeah, Selena also unmasks herself, and Shrek fires her right on the spot. Not that means much,
right?
And he shoots at both of them. Has to put puts a few slugs into Selena, but runs out of ammo before he can.
He took a gun from the bottom of the pool that was next to the dead clown who had objected to the child killing plan. He actually, in the book, it says he actually when he shoots at Batman, he actually gets Batman in the neck, according to the book. So that's why Batman is kind of down for the count throughout much of this scene.
That would have been nice. Now,
I think it end up grazing him.
Some people complain about, well, okay, so there's one glaring continuity error is the fact that he has his eye makeup for the whole movie except for when his makeup is a mask off. plus the fact that when he does take his mask off, it just rips right off instead of like actually coming off formally.
I noticed that too. Like he has like dark eye makeup.
Yeah.
Almost every time you see him, and then suddenly his eye makeup is gone when he takes.
Yeah.
I think that's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to. I think the idea is that it's supposed to look like the mask is tighter to his face than it actually is.
Yeah, exactly. But it's that plus the
really
fact that he, has to destroy the thing in order to take it off. But then again, I guess the idea being that he's not hiding anymore, and so by just tearing it where he can't put it back on, it's like, well, that symbolically says that. But I do agree with some fans. It's like, well, why is it that easy to tear off or to like destroy?
Well, he has that closet full of them that he pulls from earlier on.
And of course, this scene also has another part that I always thought was a little off because it definitely seems to ascribe an ability, a power, if you will, to Selena Kyle that she doesn't really have, which is the non-lives.
Yeah.
But I did like the way that was set up, where Shrek shoots Batman and kind of takes him out, quote unquote takes him out. He doesn't know any better. And Selena just turns back to him and says, "You killed me. The Penguin killed me. Batman killed me. That's 3 lives down. You got enough in there to finish me off." And then he just starts firing at her as she gets closer. 4, 5, still alive.
Shoots her 2 more times, and then he runs out. He runs out of ammo.
2 lives left. I think I'll save one for next Christmas. But in the meantime, how about a kiss, Santa Claus?
Love it.
And she pulls up from
the beginning.
Yeah. And then, of course, Bruce frantically goes through the rubble, and he finds Shrek, or what's left of him.
Yeah. Kind of a callback to the last movie with the guy getting fried alive.
Mm-hmm.
A little
bit of exactly.
There's a nice Happy Meal toy for you.
The Burt skeleton was a lot even back then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't that a little? No, it's a lot. Yeah.
So Penguin rises from his watery fall,
watery grave.
Yeah, his watery grave to try. He tries to kill Batman with his umbrella, but ends up pulling the wrong umbrella.
Oh shit! It's a cute one.
ends up falls down dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Emperor Penguins that found him earlier at the beginning of the movie, act as pallbearers, bringing him back into his watery grave.
Right.
Now something interesting that I found out recently. So people have kind of looked at that and they've been like, "Oh, come on, horse shit." Well, guess what? Apparently, penguins that are on their big march, with Morgan Freeman narrating and everything. Apparently, if a penguin dies while they're on that big march, the other penguins will carry that penguin. So that can happen.
That is pretty cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, apparently that's true.
And you know what, Dane, I'm a little surprised you haven't brought up one of the big moments, one of the big penguin outbursts that we had in these last few scenes, where he basically inverted a speech from Elephant Man.
I am not a human being. I am an animal. Cold.
Right.
Well, they did that, but then they also parodied Patton with him giving this to the
penguins.
Right.
Yeah. Hell, the sexes are equal with their erogenous zones blown sky high, which again, totally for kids.
That's why this episode is so long, guys, because we can't stop quoting the movie.
Right. Well, that's one reason. Do we have?
Burn.
There is the one last bit where we have, Batman, Bruce being driven around by Alfred, and he meets a cat in the alley, and it's apparently Miss Kitty.
He thinks he's Catwoman's shadow, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, stop the car!" And he runs out and he finds Miss Kitty instead,
Yeah.
Selena's cat, and he's kind of disappointed. But he takes the cat in, and they drive off, and then they pan up to the bat signal in the sky, and we see Catwoman come up into the frame, and it's like, yes, she made it.
And apparently that scene was a last-minute addition that cost $250,000.
Yeah, they did not plan on that, but that wasn't Michelle Pfeiffer. It was some other person, but
That was a good ending, though.
It was.
I couldn't really bummed. It would have been really. The movie already has kind of a downer tone to it, but it would have been even worse if Catwoman had actually died.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they already
because I had the comic book adaptation of Batman Returns, and in that one she dies.
She does. She dies She doesn't. It doesn't say she dies in the novel, but she doesn't come back. But she doesn't reappear in the end of the novel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they already set up that she had 2 lives, so I assume that she used her second to last one with the electrocution of death. But then, so in other words, the idea being if there was a spinoff that she would have just 1 life like she is supposed to have in the comics. I think that's an excellent final shot there.
Right. All right. So, I guess if we should go, special effects.
The effects in this are really good. There are a couple of things with some of the penguins. You can kind of see the strings, like not literally, but figuratively. Like they don't look 100% real.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Some of them weren't.
It was little people costumes.
And some of them were puppets as well. We do want to mention that Stan Winston's workshop was heavily involved in this. And
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Plus, you can't have projectiles strapped to real penguins. So
right.
Stan Winston with the makeup was actually had an Oscar nomination, but lost to Bram Stoker's Dracula. Which of the two, I think that's a worthy opponent there. But I have to give the Oscar to Bram Stoker's Dracula out of the two. But this,
I would agree with that too. Yeah, I mean that's an effects extravaganza.
Yes.
Oh yeah, this one was too in its own way, but not Again, it's relatively low tech compared to most blockbusters today.
Yeah.
But it's again most of the money you could tell was in sets, costumes, makeup. All the physical stuff, not so much like specific stunts. Even though those are here. But
the score is fantastic too.
Oh yeah, it's actually I think darker and more haunting, more sad, and more mournful as far as Danny Elfman goes. It also sounds like more traditional Danny Elfman that we know of, like with the
a lot of choir.
The choir stuff, but like they're not like saying words, they're just doing the sounds, but like he would always do that like from Edward Scissorhands onward, and so that sounds a lot more like what we know his score to be these days. Because like the first Batman film, like that score, it's Danny Elfman, but it's also so clearly Batman, like you could hear it and you're like, yep, that's that. This you could probably put next to Edward Scissorhands and you'd probably have a hard time telling them apart. Outside of like the obvious that motif that you can hear, but outside of that, like it does sound very similar to something like Edward Scissorhands.
In some ways, yeah.
I mean, also with the Gotham City itself, as we were watching it, my wife had commented, boy, Tim Burton must really love Christmas. And I'm like, yeah, he must, because not just looking at this, but other movies.
Edward Scissorhands, Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Tons of
so, you can see little bits of it, which is just really cool in that city. That is probably one of the coolest renditions of Gotham between this one and the first one.
I did know that
Go ahead.
But no, I did kind of notice between both movies that Gotham, it's it's kind of obvious that they're shooting on sets, and there's only maybe like one or two, you only see like maybe two or three of the same blocks
Yeah.
in each movie. I mean, to come to think of it, there's really only one alley in this whole city. In this movie, there's only one alley in the whole city.
Well, that's
Um,
something that people who don't like the Burton films in particular, which I think I've heard some of these criticisms at the Schumacher ones, but not as much in this area, which is the idea that, oh, it looks like a set, or oh, Gotham City only has 50 people in it, or whatever. And then some of those same people will say that, oh, Gotham is now a large town instead of a city like it was, and all that stuff, which I would disagree with that because, like, I would say it's more just perhaps a different section of the city in the same way that, like,
Right.
the Lower East Side of Manhattan's not the same as Rockefeller Center.
Right.
Which obviously this whole thing with the tree lighting, that's clearly meant to be Rockefeller, and it's clearly meant to be that, and and I love the very German expressionist slash fascistic, big burly naked men with the iron, the hammers and stuff like that is gorgeous, and it's that to me again that is very Gotham-esque.
Or the face in the wall that's right out of freaking Labyrinth.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Like,
we have.
that's just intimidating as hell, and I love it.
I think that covers special effects and music.
Music.
So let's move on to favorites.
Oh,
So,
Oh,
how about we? Okay, we'll start with you, Dave.
my favorite will probably be a moment with the moment with Catwoman where she's bathing herself. As I think about this movie, she does portray Catwoman pretty good. I do still feel like Halle Berry did the role better, but I have my own opinion. So, and I will probably still have that opinion going forward, at least for right now. Maybe I missed out on some of that nostalgia, but I think that at that moment was a favorite. So and the part where the Penguins actually ended up starting the turnaround the other way. It's like, could that computer be more slow in telling Penguin exactly what was going on? So
it wasn't the computer; it was the poodle lady.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll piggyback on to Dave's with the, but as far as the scenes, I would go Catwoman after her freak out with the apartment. I just love the cut out to where the neon lights go from saying "hello there" to "hell here," and I just like that. That is just great.
Love that.
Yeah.
So many to choose from. I think if I had to, okay, so the non-serious one, I think I like it with Catwoman when she's on the bed. It's like that whole shot is just like, oh, mama. But then, like, for serious though, I think honestly my favorite scene in the movie.
I don't know. That was pretty serious in some ways.
Oh yeah, it created a serious crisis down below, shall we say? But my favorite scene, in all seriousness, my favorite scene is in the climax with it becoming clear, that well, they already know who each other are by this point, Bruce and Selena, but like they're in costume and it's like Bruce is like, we're the same, split right down the center. And my favorite moment in the whole movie is where she says, I could live with you in your castle forever and ever, just like in a fairy tale, but I just could live with myself, so don't pretend this is a happy ending. And I'm like, that says who this person is better than anything, because again, that reinforces the fact that this is a fable. This is going by fairy tale logic. It's set up just like one. They are a great match for each other, but the fact of the matter is she couldn't live with herself because she's still underneath all of her her liberation, everything, she still is that scared, scarred person, just like Bruce is still a scared, scarred little boy. And I was just like,
Mhm.
oh, that's so good, because even if they were to be together, they would still be those scarred people underneath. And it's like that just says it all. Plus it reinforces the fairy tale
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She couldn't be the prince to Batman's princess.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say probably my favorite scene. My favorite scene was when Batman and Penguin first when they first meet out in front of Shrek's department store,
Mhm.
and
Oh, that's
they're like
great stuff.
questioning their motives, and then Catwoman comes somersaulting out of the store, and
Yeah.
it explodes behind her. Like first, I mean, it is the only time in the whole movie that you see all three, the Bat, the Cat, and the Penguin all together on screen
In
Mhm.
costume.
in costume. But plus, I just love the exchange. Plus, I just love I love the exchange between Batman and Penguin, and also just Cat. Cat. It's just like a bat. All she just says is meow,
Mhm.
and boom, everything just goes.
Right.
It's a total. It's a total.
Explosion.
Yes,
Right.
but also like how she just says it like a total badass.
Mhm.
Right. And I'm probably going to agree with Forrest there. I mean, again, specifically the moment where it's like she comes flipping toward them and Batman and Penguin kind of look at each other like kind of half what the hell and kind of half like, ooh, kind of. I love that part. But the part leading up to it where she's setting the bomb in the department store, it's a recurring theme in the Batman comics and shows and movies is the idea that insanity can be freeing.
Mhm.
And I think, like I said, this is a slightly less sane Selena Kyle than we're used to seeing. And in that scene, she's truly free. Like for the first time, probably in her life, she's free. And it's really kind of fun to see. It's kind of fun to see that happen. And again, just Batman and Penguin's reactions just kind of sells the whole thing.
Yeah, I like
But
that.
and there's a couple other good moments too. I mean, again, the scene on the rooftop is just classic. The scene where she threatens to bathe herself is pretty hilarious. And you got to give credit to Christopher Walken. I mean, he's the other.
Yes,
Pretty much any scene with Catwoman or Shrek in the movie tends to be the one I gravitate towards.
I agree.
You
I
know,
mean,
you
probably
know,
my favorite actor because of this movie.
I don't think we've been giving Christopher Walken enough credit for
Yeah.
just what a good job he does in this film.
Yeah.
Like,
So did that,
See,
he really
I didn't
see,
get
I
it.
always
okay.
remember Michelle Pfeiffer for Dangerous Minds.
oh,
I still need to see that.
I didn't see that.
So that's the movie that I contribute to her to. So, but other than that, is everyone ready for their
Justin
outro?
didn't get his yet.
I didn't do my
Oh.
favorite yet, but
Oh,
my
okay.
favorite is everything involving the Penguin Army. Like it is so
Oh,
like
I
I
like
just
that.
love it. Like the speech is great. Like just seeing them waddling around in the armor. Like I love them.
Did you ever, Dustin? Did you ever have those the old Penguin Army figures?
Oh yes, I did. I might still have them somewhere, even though the backpack have long since broke off.
No, I wish I wish I had those.
Now, funny.
I think they're
little-
only 20. I think you can get one. I think you can get them on eBay for like $20.
Yeah.
funny little historical fact with the toys there. So, we know McDonald's Happy Meal thing, lots of toys, lots of merchandising, all the shit. which they had obviously they had a Robin figure, even though there wasn't a Robin in the movie. They
See,
did.
I remember the merchandise more for Forever than I do
Forever,
Batman Returns.
Forever was a merchandising machine, man.
Yeah.
As
Oh,
was
yeah.
Robin, but like the point being, so they had the Robin figure, even though he wasn't in there. They had the Penguins there. They had Catwoman look like herself, but then they had the Penguin did
Look more
not
like a
look like Danny
Penguin.
DeVito. They did not look like Danny DeVito. I think they actually reused a pre-existing
They
Penguin
did.
model.
Yeah.
Penguin. I had that figure.
Because and that was one of the fact they had to do that, they felt they had to do that, was one of the reasons that Tim Burton missed out on the third one.
Yeah.
Like I
Also,
understand he wanted to do a Scarecrow movie, and I would have loved
That would have been great to see Tim Burton Scarecrow.
Yeah.
But I know that with Penguin, I think part of it was also just Kenner. Kenner was notorious for recycling old,
Right.
recycling and repackaging old figures for new lines.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. But I just find that amusing because it's like the parental backlash, as it was referred to, for this film was pretty intense, and
Yes.
that was one of the areas I think in which it manifested itself.
Mhm.
Not to mention the fact that it was pretty damn intense for even a PG-13 movie, even in 1992, and PG-13 movies were not as common as they are today. And the PG-13 kind of was a ballsier rating than it is now. Because nowadays everything's PG-13 pretty much. But even then, it's like that definitely pushed the bounds for a PG-13 at that time, let alone today. Plus, just the seriousness of the subject matter. But yeah, they can't have Danny DeVito as a likeness on the figure, unfortunately.
All right.
And
So we
on
ready
that-
to wrap up?
I think there actually is a Danny DeVito figure.
Well, probably
Penguin
now.
figure
Now there is.
now.
Yeah.
But anyway, on that note, so I think we're gonna end it there. Let's start with let's do our outros, maybe as quick as possible, so we don't go too far over 2 hours. So I'll start with myself. I'm Dustin, also known as the Crypt of Horrors here on YouTube. I'm a horror collector living in Milwaukee, and I have a YouTube channel where I show off my pickups, the Crypt of Horrors. I also have an Instagram where I show off kind of random stuff from my collection, the Crypt of Horrors. I'm on Twitch as the Crypt of Horrors. I sometimes play horror games on there. And so go give me a follow. And you can also find me on Twitter as Der Cryptaxis. DER Cryptaxis. So
Okay.
follow me across all the different dimensions. It'll be fun.
on the Twitter and the Facebook, as they say.
I do have a Facebook page called Apartment of Horror Inc.
Nice. I'm Dane Kyle, aka Dane Damarung on YouTube. I'm on a channel called Inside. I'm on Inside Movies Galore, but I'm also on Indie Horror Film Creative, where I do a show called Blu-ray Views, where I show off the various Blu-rays that I've acquired, and had to kind of slow that down because I've got another mouth to feed who's furry and four-legged. But doing that, plus just really trying to get myself together creatively, because I'm also a filmmaker, trying to get myself creatively to really hit the ground running once vaccines are in wide distribution, because I don't feel good about doing it before then, just for safety reasons. But really trying to reevaluate my life, trying to get my projects together such that I can really hit the ground running in 2021.
All right. I guess I'll jump in now. I'm Kodabuki Jake, also big time movie fan, collector, sometime commentator here in Virginia, and I'm co-host on Septum Sin versus the World on YouTube. And In all honesty, I'm too tired to think of anything else tonight. So it's 2 a.m. here.
Yeah.
But I will go ahead and mention that I have been working tonight on a brand new microphone I got for Christmas. So any of y'all that are listening that feel that there was a definite audio upgrade on my part, I would love to hear feedback. So let me know.
Alrighty, going over to why don't you, Forrest, go?
All right.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, my name's Forrest Bennett. I'm based in Long Island, New York. I'm a avid movie goer and comic book reader. Also, producer of several independent horror films that are all currently in various stages of production.
Alrighty, let's go over to you, Brandon. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I am Septum Sin, a Septum Sin versus the world. We do physical media. That's all I'm going to say about that. As Jake says, we do have an upcoming month though that is going to be new. This Days of Future Past, I believe, is what Forrest renamed it to.
Excellent name.
Which we will be discussing futuristic movies that take place past their time. We have gotten all the votes in, and so our lineup for the first week is going to... Actually, I'll just go from the last week back. The last week will be a Kubrick week, which will cover 2001 Space Odyssey, and which, of course, 2001, and kind of an alternative future, which would be A Clockwork Orange. Then we've got, going further back, we have Venus Wars, which has us colonizing Venus in 1999, and the film Running Man, which I believe takes place in the late 90s. Then there is, or early 2000s, I have to double check my notes. Then, of course, we have a double feature of Escape from New York and its sequel, Escape from LA, which I know Escape from New York take place in the 90s, I believe 97, which is kind of funny. And then, of course, next week we can all be excited for Back to the Future Part 1 and 2, which, of course, as we know, Part 2 passed not too long ago.
2015.
Yep. So a lot of fun stuff there, some cool stuff to look forward to. So I hope we'll see you on the next one, and I'm signing out.
Yeah.
Alrighty. And my name is David Streggy. I am one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for joining us with holiday season. Hopefully we brought you some good, cheerful films to think about and ponder upon. For next year, I'm sure that we'll probably be going through the same roundabout. And hopefully we have some good choices coming up here. But I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where I do my own pickup videos and my own film reviews. And hopefully you can get a chance to check some of those out, like, share, and subscribe to either page. Definitely make sure you give a shout out to Septum Sin versus the World. Make sure you like and subscribe to their page as well. They are always a friend and helpful supporter of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you. And like, share, and subscribe their page as well. So thank you for listening. Have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. And happy holidays, everyone.
Yep. Night, everyone, and Happy New Year.
Night, night.